Warning, this is not a fitness podcast. Strong, Fit for Business is a business success podcast seen through the lens of physical and mental fitness. What lessons about success can we learn from staying fit? How can we stay strong in both? I'm not a fitness expert or health professional. Don't take any advice just because you heard it here, be it fitness or business. But you can take insights and inspiration from the business leaders who share their fitness journey with us. I know I will. Welcome to Strong, Fit for Business. Hello, everybody. My name is Vikram Rajan. I am the co-founder of Video Socials. Welcome back to Strong, Fit for Business for another episode. This is like other episodes, but even more special as I've known Ada Hasloecher for many, many years. She's been a great colleague and client, and looking forward to getting to know her in a different angle because I don't think we've ever had a conversation around this. As you've known me, Ada, for many, many years, you've probably seen me heavier and now lighter. So I've gone through my own, I hate to say struggles, but it's been, a lifelong challenge. I've been chubby all my life. At least I was chubby all my life. Up and down, yo-yo diets, a whole bit. A couple of years ago, I would say at this point, 4 years ago, right after COVID, during COVID, I found the COVID-19, as it were, the 19 pounds, as a lot of people got more sedentary, and I was not immune to that. And ended up qualifying for the vaccine because I was morbidly obese at that time. I didn't think I was, but technically I was. And so I guess the only advantage was that I got the vaccine early, but there are whole sorts of other disadvantages to that. And then my wife told me that I should go see a doctor about this new thing called Ozempic. And so I got on Ozempic for a couple of months, for about 9 months, dropped 30 pounds, and then it stopped working. And the doctor was like, all right, you got to start exercising now. And I was like, hey, you told me I didn't have to work out. And she was like, well, can't you just fit in a half an hour a day here and there? That has turned into multiple half hours a day to the point of almost to an hour and a half, 2 hours sometimes. I enjoy the treadmill. I enjoy weights. That has helped me not only stay physically fit, but emotionally, I can feel a difference. Energy-wise, I can feel a difference. And it has, I think, such a profound impact on business in terms of my confidence and how I'm able to relate to others. And Ada, I would love to hear your perspective, how your strength has helped your business growth. Ada, for those who don't know, many of our world does know Ada Hasloecher, but Ada, you practice as a family mediator. So I'd love for you to share a little bit about that and how your physical fitness journey and your emotional fitness journey has shaped you. So Ada, tell us a little bit about your practice, but how has also your fitness journey physically and emotionally helped grow your career and practice?
Okay, thank you. So I have been a divorce and family mediator since 2003. So this June is 23 years that I've been doing this work. And, it is emotionally draining. You're challenged because you're walking into the conflict and helping couples resolve their differences so that they can continue to co-parent their children and, financially take care of themselves in the future. So there's a lot to that. So I feel like I not only need to be physically in good shape, but mentally and spiritually in good shape so that I can really be there for my clients. I always say we have to be the Buddha in the room. I don't want to be the big fat Buddha. I want to be a fit Buddha, right? In order to, do the work that I do, because it takes a lot to be present to do this work.
And so have you always been physically fit, and do you feel that you've always been kind of from a mental health standpoint fit? Like, tell me about that. Any ups and downs?
Yeah, I was a very physically active kid. I was a real tomboy.
Yeah.
And then when I was a late teenager, started to have some weight problems and did Weight Watchers and things like that. My sister many years ago had read a quote from Julie Andrews, the actress, in an interview about, how she stays so physically fit. And she said, I don't have to diet because I eat sensibly.
All right.
Because I pretty much eat what I want. I don't overdo it.
Choice words to say to you about that.
Yeah, I love my ice cream and I love lasagna and I love a salad and I love fattening foods and I love non-fattening foods. So I try to pace myself so that I can enjoy everything without having to give up anything. Because I always think when you give up something, you're going to make it up some other way, and it's usually and in an unhealthy way.
Sure.
So, yeah,
So when
yeah.
you were a tomboy, what were you into? Like different
Oh,
sports, or
I never
what were you doing?
I never played with dolls. I was on the
Okay.
bike, I was running around, I was just a very physically active kid. I'm the oldest of three sisters, and when we moved to the house from Brooklyn, we had a nice piece of property, and I always said I was my father's oldest son, right?
Yeah.
Because I was out there with him doing all of that stuff, and I'm still that way. And it's actually what attracted me to my husband, because he saw that I learned how to ski when I met him. I learned how to water ski when I met him. He said, "You look like you could take it," you know?
Good for you.
Yeah, yeah. So
And so,
that's
have you noticed an impact in terms of your practice and how you work with clients? Kind of the emotional aspect, the mental health aspect that not only you work with your clients on, but for yourself. How has that been?
Yeah, so it's funny. I just came off the New York State Council on Divorce Mediation annual conference, and I was on a panel discussion. It was the first opening plenary, and it was about how do you deal with high conflict couples who have hit an impasse? What do you do to intervene to help them break that impasse so that they can go forward?
Yeah.
And one of the questions, the moderator who was asking, there were three of us on the panel, he said, "So, Ada, what do you do to, kind of unwind and relax a little bit?" I said, "Well, it involves a quart of Haagen-Dazs chocolate ice cream and 2 hours of Big Bang Theory reruns every night." And
Every
that got
night for you.
a big laugh, right? But I think, I do try to balance my life, not just being physically active, but I'm a big reader. I do a morning meditation with this book, Calm in the Face of the Storm, which is a daily meditation for the peacemaker. It helps me center myself for the day. Um, and I like humor. I like to watch funny TV shows and movies. And, I think it's so important, especially in the world we live in today. There's so much heaviosity, and I'm in a
Sure.
world of a lot of heavy stuff, that I think it's really important to just find that balance so that, you don't get, dragged down, because you can't be of help to your clients when you yourself are not in good shape mentally, physically, spiritually, and every other which way but loose, right?
It's you're in a draining world where their mental anxiety and mental issues, let alone financial stuff, comes up, and that could be emotionally draining not only for them as separating couple, but also for you. And so for you to recharge becomes that much more paramount. To go granular into a day to day and weekly, you mentioned kind of your morning meditation routine, and that I don't know if you said a pint or half a pint of Haagen Dazs almost every day. That could add up. Have you brought in any of those kind of tomboy physical habits into adulthood?
Well, my husband and I do the Nordic track.
Oh,
And
nice.
now that the weather's beautiful, we're doing a lot of gardening. So mowing and planting and watering and weeding. So, we really try to do that. And then in the wintertime, because we live on Long Island, there's a beautiful boardwalk on the North Shore. So we try to get there as much as possible. It's a 1.5 mile walk. And then
Hmm.
sometimes we'll walk up into the bluffs too, and walk
Yeah,
up and walk down, and, just be in nature, because nature is nurturing. And I
sure.
try to get out as much as possible and just be in the weather. Many years ago, there was a restaurant bar that has since closed on Long Island, but it was on the South Shore. And we took a walk at our boardwalk in the wintertime, and it was a really cold day, and I wasn't ready to go home. So my husband said, "What do you want to do?" I said, "Let's go to the South Shore and take a walk there." So they had a bar set up in the dead of winter, right outside, right, and it was freezing, playing Jimmy Buffett music. And so we bellied up to the bar, and the bartender, of course, asked us what we wanted, and we were talking about the weather. And he said, "Remember, there's no such thing as bad weather, only bad clothes." And it's
It's a
true.
good
If
mindset.
you dress for it, you could be out in any kind of weather. And we really do try to get out there and be in the fresh air and, do whatever exercise that we can in that way. So that
Yeah.
helps. Yeah.
Well, Over these years, you've maintained not only a sunny disposition, but also physically fit. And that seems to come relatively naturally for you, despite some of the fun food habits that you have. Have you done any outside, like you mentioned, Weight Watchers? Have you done any other diets? Have any other supplements? Any other vitamins? Are there any kind of a nutrition routine that you follow?
Yeah, my husband and I did Noom. It was
Okay,
actually around COVID because it was the same thing. We try to get out as much as possible, but a lot of sitting around. And so we did the Noom program, not the one where they do the microdosing now, but really, and it really helped both of us kind of realize that eating small, frequent meals was better than, sitting and eating like a half a pound of spaghetti at night.
or Haagen Dazs?
you know so that really helped us adjust a little bit, in the way that we eat now. And also
Hmm.
because I see my clients, many of them at night, after work, and I Zoom with
Sure.
my clients. We've
Right.
been eating dinner sometimes at 4:30, 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
And I said, we're turning into a couple of old people now, the early bird special.
Right.
But the truth is, it's so much better to eat that meal
Early.
earlier than later, so that it's not, laying here. And it's healthier to eat that way. So that's been another kind of thing that happened just by dint of my practice. I can't get off the phone at 7:30 at night and then be eating dinner that late. That just doesn't
Yeah.
work. Yeah, yeah.
And so you have a natural cutoff point where you're not eating so close to bedtime. That's just, I hear that as
Yeah,
kind of a part of natural fitness and better from a glycemic index and blood sugar and all that stuff. Do
right.
you have to discipline yourself there, or is that just kind of become part of a habit that you've maintained because of your work schedule with you and your husband?
It's so funny because, sugar is addictive. People
Yeah.
don't like get that, how addictive it is. Like the more you have it, the more you want it. And I really was on an ice cream kick for a while. And, I was the kind of person who could keep all that stuff in the house and, it didn't bother me. But then when I started like having a little bit of every night, um, we'd be watching TV at night and I'd be fighting with myself not to get up and go and get it. What I do now is I just don't keep it in the house, and maybe on the weekend, we'll have a treat. And then, but I realize like how addictive the sugar is, because when I go, weeks without it, I don't crave it. But when
Yeah.
I'm back on it a little bit, that craving is there. There was a book written many years ago called Sugar Blues. I
Mm.
think the book was written in the 60s, and he talked about that, the addictive nature of sugar. So, once I'm like off it, then, I'm not even thinking about it. But when I'm on it, the craving is there and I have to fight it. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
So that
yeah.
so from that aspect, you prefer not to have it in a house, or yeah,
Yeah,
as
I
you
try to
used to
keep
have.
it not in the house. So like on a Friday, well, Trader Joe's has really great ice cream and half the
Yeah,
price of every other place. So,
right.
sometimes for the weekend, I'll say, oh, I'll go get, I'll get it, and then we'll have it Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then Monday, we're off it. So, but you got to treat yourself every once in a while, because when you don't do that, I remember reading a book years ago called Diets Don't Work. And he said that 40 pounds of cottage cheese is not going to satisfy that desire for a hot fudge sundae. And he said, what's going to happen is you're going to eat the 40 pounds of cottage cheese, and then you're going to eat the hot fudge sundae on top of
Right.
that. So you're
Right.
better off just have the hot fudge sundae and call it dinner and satisfy the itch, right?
And enjoy life along the way. So it's not only discipline and sacrifice.
Well, it's funny because you asked me to think about some of my favorite quotes, and I have many. One of
Yeah.
them was from Irma Bombeck, who was a humorist, who wrote a newspaper column back in the 60s and early 70s. And this is what she said. She said, think about all the women on the Titanic who waved off the dessert cart.
That's one way of looking at it. I guess
Right.
it's one of their regrets. I hate to laugh at it because it's such a dire circumstance that they went through. But I suppose, yeah, you never know when life's gonna end, so you may as well enjoy dessert when you can.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Well, let's take a quick commercial break. But when we come back, I'd love to hear a little bit more of these kinds of sayings and other things that have helped you kind of stay disciplined or stay focused, as it were, on your emotional and physical fitness journey. And I don't know if there's a couple of people that you could then give a shout out to that you have felt really exemplified physical fitness and emotional fitness. But let's take that ad break first.
Okay. Sounds good.
Have you ever thought about hosting your own video interview podcast? Why? Is it just to bring in more clients, or is it to make a meaningful difference in your community? You know, after producing dozens of video podcasts for our clients, we've noticed a few success principles. One of them is the more you teach, the more you reach. After all, hosting our own video podcast is a great way of nurturing relationships, not only with potential clients, but with our raving fans and our referral relationships that have long-term benefits to not only us, but to our clients as well. A podcast is a multiplier effect. If you're still struggling to get a foothold of wondering where your next client is coming from, you might want to start something simpler with a video blog through video socials. But if you're at the point where you can multiply on your success, multiplying 0 equals 0. So if you're already at that level where you're no longer wondering where that next client is from and looking forward to scaling your firm, well, hosting a video podcast can be enjoyable if you're not doing it all yourself. With video socials, you have a whole team where you can literally show up at showtime, play the role of a talk show host, enjoy the conversation with your podcast guests, and then leave all the rest of the grunt work to our staff at Video Socials to get the job done right for you. You have a choice of one of two options. You can just marinate and kind of think of the topics and be that armchair entrepreneur, or let's get going. You can choose a time for about 20-30 minutes in my Calendly. Go to vikramrajan.com. It's my full name.com, vikramrajan.com. We'll spend 20-30 minutes brainstorming what should we call your show? How's your audience going to find your show? Why will they share your episodes with others? Because quite frankly, it's that sharing that leads to more word of mouth referrals. If you're not quite ready, you can go to videosocials.net/topics and download our blog Brainstormer, and then we can have a conversation about the kind of topics that your video blog and video podcast should explore. Again, my name is Vikram Rajan. I'm the co-founder of Video Socials, and I'm looking forward to growing with you. And we're back. Ada, you've mentioned a couple of books and resources, so we'll link to that as well as your website in the show notes. But before the break, you had mentioned that you were on Noom, and I'd love if you could share a little bit more about that experience. Why did you start it, and why did you stop, if you did, and kind of any lessons that you learned from that experience?
Yeah, the idea of the program was to eat in a moderate way. They never told you not to eat certain foods, okay? And as I said before, I think when you eliminate a food group, and this is true in life with everything, when the minute you eliminate something, you're going to make it up in some other way. Like with the no fat foods, if it doesn't have fat, it's got sugar. If it doesn't have sugar, it's got salt. You're just better off, just having a little bit of something satisfying for yourself. And that's kind of what the Noom program is all about. Also, not eating a lot at one meal, but just eating frequent small meals during the day. Because again, that one book that I had read years ago called Diets Don't Work, and I think it's out of print, but he said, and I love, to think about things visually. He said, think about your stomach as the size of your fist. It doesn't take much to fill this up. Anything that you fill up more than that is just waste. Your body can't absorb it. The nutrients aren't going to go there. It's going to turn to fat. So that kind of visual idea about that. So then the question is, when you said, what does it take to be satisfied when you eat? Mm-hmm. And, a lot of times, we come from, empty a plate. That's how I was when I was growing up. That was the message, right? But so now we eat with a smaller plate. So it looks like a lot in a smaller plate, and it does kind of fool you a little bit. And I always say, if I want more, I'll get up and get more. But 9 times out of 10, I'm good. Right. And that was like the whole philosophy behind Noom. So we still, we don't adhere to it exactly, but pretty close is the way we, kind of eat now, with respect to that. Yeah.
Before the ad break, you mentioned a quote that you appreciate. Are there any other lessons of fitness that have helped your practice, help your business, and even help your clients? Any other sayings or things that you remind yourself about?
Yeah, there are two. One of them is from Soren Kierkegaard, who was a 17th century Danish philosopher and theologian. And I have this quote on my website.
All
And
right.
he said, life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards. And how
Okay.
many times in our life when we're going through a difficult, challenging situation that we're like, why is this happening? You know, we don't really think that there's a lesson in there for us. We're just trying to keep our head above water. But later, when you are well on the other side of it, you look back and you say to yourself, oh, that's why that happened. That's why I didn't get that job. That's why this relationship didn't work out. It wasn't supposed to. I was supposed to learn from that situation, but it wasn't necessarily supposed to be a permanent thing, but something for me to take and learn from in my journey in my life. So I just love that quote. The other thing is, we're talking about fitness and, there's spiritual fitness, mental fitness, and all of that. And a quote from Emile Zola, who was, a writer. And he said, the artist is nothing without the work. But the gift is nothing without let me do it again. The artist is nothing without the gift, but the gift is nothing without the work.
Hmm.
And just because you have a natural ability or a talent, if you don't apply the hard work to it, it's not going to flourish, and you're not going to feel satisfied and feel that you've achieved anything. And I really learned that when I became a mediator, because I had been in a completely different industry. I'd had enough with that industry. I was looking for something else that really made a difference in people's lives, where I could really be of service.
Hmm.
And it was a lot of work. I'm not a lawyer. You have to know the law, you have to understand people's psychology. So I was running for every class, course, workshop to
Yeah, there's a
really.
financial aspect, of course, of separation. So
That's right. That's right. And I still do the work. I still, attend workshops. There's always something new to learn and to grow. Sometimes I go back and read those original books that I read about mediation, because when I started, it was so far into my future. But now that I've been doing this work for so long, I'm reading it and understanding it with a completely different perspective now. And
hmm.
it keeps you chugging. I think it's important to have something to look forward to,
Sure.
because learning is, it doesn't stop when you graduate from high school or college. The work and the learning, to me, begins once you're on the other side of that formal education in a lot of ways. So, it's
That
important
makes
to
sense.
keep this going.
Well, look, the mental health is intertwined with our physical health, and it can be the main priority for us to actually get physically fit. So it begins with the mind and ends with the mind. Really, it's like the beginning and end of it all. So I appreciate your focus on that, Ada. Speaking of which, is there anyone in our circle of connections that you have seen grow over these years and mature physically, let alone emotionally, that you rave about and you could appreciate and give a shout out to, that you feel are fit for business?
Yeah, so I've been doing video socials. I started blogging with you and Mark from the very beginning.
Yeah,
We were actually getting our practices off. You were getting your practice off the
sure.
ground when I was
Yeah,
getting mine off the ground. So we all kind of grew together. So I have my video social group on Thursday, and I've been with them for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years now. They're incredible.
Thursdays,
Um,
11 a.m. Eastern. You can give a plug. So that great.
Thursday at 11. Yep, like clockwork, we're on that call. So Allison Joes from Legal Ease Consulting, she works with
Hmm.
attorneys to help them have ease in their practice and to help them grow their practice. So Allison is definitely, a winner in my book. And Jasmine Briggs Rogers, who has she's a resume writer and career coach. She's also pretty extraordinary. I've referred clients to her, because in my business, when somebody has to go back to work after raising a family for a while in the industry that they had been in, is no longer doing work the way they used to do it. They have to kind of refresh and kind of find another way to use those talents and skills. And Jasmine, really helps them. She's got a great attitude, and because it's daunting to find work. I always say, finding a home, finding a job, right? Painting your house, they're daunting projects, right? So it's really helpful to work with a professional who can really partner up with you so that, you don't get down on yourself as you're going through those experiences. And both of those women, I think, are incredible and would be, really great to interview.
And you embody that for your clients as well. Obviously, we will link to your website in the show notes. But I'm wondering, and I didn't really prep you for this question, so I'm putting you on the spot. Is there anything upcoming in terms of the next phase of your career and your fitness life that you're working towards? Anything that you can share us and give us a sneak preview, either from a physical fitness, emotional and mental health fitness, or from professional achievements?
I'm so glad you asked, because yes, so after doing this work for so long, divorce work, I have rolled out a premarital mediation program now. Because,
Congrats. So talk more about that.
Yeah, because, there was a while where I was seeing a lot of very, very young couples coming in and throwing in the towel on the marriage after 2 years, 3 years with an 8-month-old. And I'm thinking, what's going on here? If I could get them before they tie the knot, so we could talk about all the issues that I know, having been married for so long myself. This is my second marriage, my husband's second marriage, and also the divorce mediation that I've done, all the issues that I know come up in a marriage. If we could kind of, forewarned is forearmed, if we could start talking about these things early on and learn how to have the conversations and work things out, how to negotiate with each other. Life's a negotiation. And just because you fall in love with somebody, you think, there's never going to be a problem in the future. And of course, it's ridiculous. We all, life is complicated and relationships are complicated. So I wanted to be able to help young couples really develop a good, strong foundation so that they don't have to come and see me in a divorce mediation situation.
Well, that ounce of prevention philosophy and that strong foundation aspect are both things that you embody from kind of your tomboy years, so to speak, let alone the morning meditation that you do on a daily basis. Both are profound in terms of foundation and ounce of prevention versus just focusing on the cure. So, Ada, thank you so much for your time. Is there anything that I've left out in terms of your physical, spiritual, mental health, fitness that you want to bring up? I think this has been profound in and of itself.
You were a perfect interviewer, Vic, and it's so good to see you today. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
I know this is like this awkward, contrived conversation that we're having. That versus we should, grab a cup of coffee or a pint of Haagen-Dazs and just catch up.
I feel like we did have a cup of coffee together.
Yeah, there you go. Well, Ada Hasloecher, thank you so much for your time and your insights.
Thanks so much, Vic. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Strong, Fit for Business. I've been your host, Vikram Rajan, co-founder of Video Socials. You can share this video podcast through YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Spotify, and more. Together, we can be strong, fit for business.